Our lesson today will be classifying quadrilaterals, and it is so that you can understand that shapes are in different categories. The first shape that we're going to talk about is quadrilaterals, and basically all you need to know about a quadrilateral is that they have four sides. So this can be any shape that has four sides. Now we're going to talk about a parallelogram. Basically, parallelograms have opposite sides that are parallel and congruent. Now, a rhombus has four congruent sides. Now, my drawing on the left shows you that a rhombus doesn't necessarily have to be a square. So my second picture is of a square because it has four congruent sides. But the left picture shows that it has four congruent sides, but not all of the angles are equal. So a square is a rhombus, but a rhombus doesn't necessarily have to be a square. So for the rectangle here, the rectangle is pretty basic. It's just four right angles. So squares have four right angles, so a square would technically be a rectangle, but a rectangle wouldn't be a square because, yes, it has four right angles, but it has two congruent sides. It doesn't have four congruent sides like a square does, so we'll get to that next. So as you can see, a square has four right angles, and it also has four congruent sides. So this is one of the most basic shapes here that usually students can point out. So yes, just with a square, remember it has four right angles and four congruent sides, which does make it different from a rectangle because rectangles don't have four congruent sides. Alright, now we're going to go into more difficult vocabulary. We're going to talk about a trapezoid. So right now I've told you about quadrilaterals, rhombuses, rectangles, squares, and parallelograms, and all of those can kind of fit into each other here. A trapezoid looks a little different, and there's exactly one pair of parallel sides. So I kind of drew two pictures here so you can kind of see what I mean. A trapezoid obviously is not a square, not a rectangle, but it actually would be a rhombus because it has four sides. So that's, or sorry, not a rhombus, I'm sorry, a quadrilateral because it does have four sides. So with the trapezoid, just know that they look kind of funny, but basically all that a trapezoid means is that there's exactly one pair of parallel sides, as you can kind of see here. I wonder if I can draw. As you can kind of see, these two sides right here are parallel, and these two sides right here are parallel, and because of that, you'll see that these angles are the same, and these angles right here are the same. Excuse my beautiful drawing. So basically, the main point that I want to get out of this is, or for you to understand, is that all of the shapes I just mentioned are quadrilaterals. So doesn't matter if it's a trapezoid or a square, they're all quadrilaterals because a quadrilateral just means that it has four sides. Okay, so now we're going to get into actually classifying quadrilaterals. So I'm going to give you all of the possible names here. So as you can see above, this is a square with some sort of, 5 inches all around. We already talked about what a square is. And then below, I've given you all of the possible names that you have to call the square. So the first one would be that it is a quadrilateral because it has four sides. And then after that, you can go down to the next one, which would be a parallelogram. And for those of you that don't remember what a parallelogram is, so a quadrilateral has four sides, and a parallelogram is just that the opposite sides are parallel and congruent. Okay, so in this case, this would be a parallelogram, and then it would also be a rhombus because there are four congruent sides, and obviously this is a square because we all know what a square looks like, and I kind of mentioned this before, but this would also be rectangle because a rectangle has four right angles, and this object, this shape, has 4 right angles. Okay, so this funny looking shape we already can tell is a trapezoid because it doesn't look like the other shapes. Obviously, if we're going to classify the shape, we know that it's a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides. If we're trying to figure out all of the possible names that it could be, we know right away that it's not a parallelogram because the opposite sides are not parallel, they're not congruent. It's not a rhombus because there's not 4 congruent sides. It's not a square because there's not 4 right angles, there's not 4 congruent sides, and then that automatically says that it's not a rectangle either because there's not 4 right angles. So then we have to look and see if it's a trapezoid, which by kind of looking at it, it's easier to tell that it probably would be a trapezoid, but remember we talked about that. If it's a trapezoid, then there is exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. And we know that, here, let me get out my whatever here. We know that this side that I'm drawing on and this side must be parallel because you have these 2 right angles right here, these 2 90-degree angles, which shows you that it is a trapezoid. So lastly here, I just kind of wanted to show you this guy here. Obviously this is not drawn to scale, but sometimes you're going to get a picture like this and you're going to be really confused and not know what to call this. Obviously it is a quadrilateral because there are 4 sides. That's usually the first one you want to look for. Is it a quadrilateral? Yes, it's a quadrilateral. I kind of messed up on my drawing right here, but this is that's 1 line. We can rule out that it's not a parallelogram, that it's not a rhombus, that it's not a rectangle, and it's not a square because there are no congruent sides, there's no congruent angles or right angles drawn in, and we can also tell that it's not a trapezoid because there are not 1 equal pair of parallel sides. None of these, not this side, this side, this side, or this side are parallel. Because if it were, you would see something like this, or you would see something like this, kind of just showing you that it's parallel, but nothing is there. So basically, all we can say about this shape is just that it's a quadrilateral. It just has 4 sides. So basically, just the big thing to remember about this lesson today is that you just have to give all possible names for every shape. Look back to this presentation and just remember the vocabulary for quadrilateral, parallelogram, rhombus, rectangle, square, and trapezoid, and try to get it nailed in your head in memory what each of those mean, so that when you are giving all the possible names and classifying the shapes, you will be able to do that easily. So come to me if you have any questions, but otherwise, let's keep on learning.